Our first inductee today is Carol Rymer Davis. Carol began her ballooning career in 1972 and was an accomplished hot air balloon and a gas balloon pilot. She was a life member of the BFA and had proudly served on the BFA board of directors, as well as many other committees and a lot more volunteer stuff as well. In her professional career outside of ballooning, she was a well-noted doctor of radiology and nuclear medicine. She also led a very distinguished military career and retired as a colonel in the Army Reserves. Carol's life was cut short in 2010. She and Richard Abruzzo were competing in the Gordon Bennett Cup gas balloon race in Europe when their balloon USA-2 disappeared in the Adriatic Sea. With us today are Carol's daughters and her husband, John Davis. Heather I was going to ask you this before I said it. Benavides, her firstborn daughter, loved ballooning as much as her mother did, so Heather chose also a career in aviation. She's been the event organizer for almost a decade for the Colorado Balloon Classic, which is the state's largest air show. She also carried her mom's tradition by attending the Colorado Rocky Mountain School. She and her husband Jody have two sons, Isaac and Ryan, all who reside in Fountain, Colorado. Heather and her family carry on Carol's love of biking, Broncos football, I'm a Packers fan, but Broncos are okay, and the Colorado Rockies baseball. And you can have them because the Brewers are not doing well this year. Carol's other daughter, Marnie Schmitz, was the second-born daughter, born 13 months after Heather, and is a management consultant who primarily works with clients with Microsoft. Both Carol and Marnie are graduates of the University of Colorado. Marnie and her husband, John, who are both hot air balloon pilots, recently moved from Seattle back to Denver. Their children, Margaret and Hunter and Tanner, are looking forward to spending lots of time with their granddad, John, enjoying the Nuna's, is that right, Nuna? Nuna's favorite state. Nuna was the nickname for Carol by her grandchildren. Marnie, like her mom, loves to run, hunt, hike, and ski. She might hunt too, I'm not sure. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Heather and Marnie.
Thank you for joining us today to celebrate the Hall of Fame induction of the wife, mother, sister, grandmother, friend, and most importantly, for today, one of the world's premier aviators, Carol Rymer Davis. This is Heather Davis Benavides, and I'm Marnie Davis Schmitz, Carol's daughters. My mom's husband of 42 years is John Davis. He is right here. Heather is going to share her memories of her mom first, and then I'll join again.
Thanks, Marnie. Thank you all for allowing us to share some thoughts with you today about our mom, Carol Rymer Davis. Things we learn from our parents sometimes we don't realize until we become adults ourselves. Since our mother is being inducted into the National Hot Air Balloon Hall of Fame, her exemplary aviation career actually speaks for itself. Through ballooning, she was able to teach my husband Jody and our two sons, and me, as well as many others, more than just aviation. She taught us things like creativity. It comes in so many forms. For example, look at our favorite hot air balloon, Raggedy Ann. Just like the patchwork design on Raggedy Ann, she taught us to take the pieces of our lives, put them together, and create beautiful and memorable experiences that can be shared by others. Because of this, Jody, Isaiah, Ryan, and I share the passion of hot air ballooning and ballooning. That creativity has also resulted in me being able to follow in her footsteps, but on a slightly different path, into the same world of ballooning. There was no greater sense of mother-daughter pride than watching my mother lift off in the various balloon events in several states that I've organized. She believed that if you're going to take on a challenge, then take it on. Be committed, not only to the win, but taking the necessary steps needed along the way to reach your goals. That lesson has served me well both in my personal and business life. Mom was the best at everything she took on, and her example taught me to be the best at everything I do. Her work ethic not only resulted in her receiving numerous awards but also touched so many lives along the way. Some people may have individual memories of her from her ballooning, but all of mine seem to flow together, of Mom being where she loved the most, in the sky, sharing. Well, some think that family is only those related by blood. She and Dad gave Marnie and me an extended family through our balloon family. Through many tailgate parties, balloon events held around the world, dinner and cocktail parties, she taught me how to share not only the journey, but the importance of our ballooning community. When she went for the world record in that small AX5, Diamond Queen, not only were Dad, Marnie, and I glued to the radio, but so were many of our ballooning family. They were right there with us. I can still hear the cheering when she radioed to tell us she had reached her goal, set a new world record. She continued to break and set many world records, not only in hot air ballooning, but gas ballooning. A friend of mine often reminds me, the sky is not the limit. The only limits that we have are those that we set on ourselves. I think that my mother would agree. With that said, I look forward to sharing and hearing our extended family tell their stories about my mom, and your memories then can become part of our family memories. I'm going to turn it over to Marnie.
There were three places that I felt most at home with my mother. The first was the childhood home that my father and mother created for us in Albuquerque. The second place I felt most at home with my mom were on the hikes that we shared in my 20s and 30s in Colorado. The third place I felt at home with my mom was in a hot air balloon. My mother loved the thrill of gas ballooning. It was her shiny race car. However, it was when she stepped in and piloted a hot air balloon that it seemed that the world just melted away and she was completely in her element. She was at home in a hot air balloon. I have a few stories to tell that I remember from my mom and being with my mom that I'd like to relive with you. The first was when my mom and I were flying Diamond Queen in the cold winter in Chama, New Mexico in the early 1980s. We flew into an area that was around 6 feet deep in snow. In our attempt to land on the snowpack, the aluminum basket became a high-speed sled. And sled we did, right into a ferocious pine tree. The weight of the basket and the speed of our slide embedded us deep within the pine tree limbs. Mom tried to burn out of it, and it didn't work. As the temperature in the balloon rose, so did my panic. However, my mom stayed perfectly calm. She enlisted my help to get through my panic. She enlisted my help to help me get through my panic. She said, "Marnie, we're going to be just fine. Let's try lightly jumping up and down," which we did. And it was enough to cause breakage in the pine tree limbs that we were able to peacefully fly out of that tree. I was in absolute awe of my mother after that. I thought she was magic, and she was mine. I knew how incredibly lucky I was to have her as my mom, and for Kate keeping me safe inside and outside of where we were most at home. The second story is when my mom took my husband on his first balloon ride. I imagine many of you have met people that are absolutely terrified of heights. My husband was one of those. He shook climbing ladders, and if he had to go onto the roof of our house for any reason, the blood would completely drain out of his face. So it took a while of some years of convincing, but finally my mom wore him down, and he decided to go for his first balloon ride with her. He had absolute love and trust of my mother, and that helped him get into the basket and lift off with her. He white-knuckled the basket for about 10 minutes. And Then he began to relax and really enjoy the ride. He actually enjoyed it so much that he joined me in pursuing our private pilot certificate. And today, thanks to the lessons that my father and mother have passed on, he is one of the best balloon pilots I've ever flown with. That's saying a lot. My mom was able to pass her aura of comfort and calm to my husband, as she did for hundreds of other passengers and future pilots throughout the years. The third story I'd like to tell you dates back to the mid-'70s, when my mom made her second record attempt at a distant flight in Queen Celeste. Thanks to my dad and our wonderful balloon family, my mom was incredibly well prepared for the flight. The flight was a night flight, so it used the cold air and the winds off the back crest of the Sandia Peak to propel her distance. After she landed the balloon, she was not able to reach air traffic control by radio, so she packed up Queen Celeste and walked to the nearest town. Being as well prepared as she was, the one thing she didn't prepare was any money. So she begged 3 teenagers for a dime each. She called air traffic control, the takeoff crew in the Boyardi airport, and my dad, the traveling crew. They had a car phone. So I'm back to the number 3, the 3 places I mentioned at the beginning. That number 3 really stuck with my mom and me as our number. The best example of this is my mom's present to my husband and I in our first year of marriage was 3 decorative eggs, which we hang every year on the Christmas tree. Much to my mom's delight, my husband and I now have 3 kids. And like everything else she poured her heart into, she loved being a grandma, and she was awesome at it. I moved from Seattle to Denver last week and received this wonderful card from a friend. The card read, "Home is that precious place where your heart feels safe to live, love, grow, and simply just be." Ballooning was home for my mom. Piloting a hot air balloon and being part of this ballooning community was where her heart felt safe to live, love, grow, and simply just be Carol Davis. Thank you for honoring our mother. Thank you for the award. Thank you for sharing this day with Heather, my dad, and me. It's truly an honor to be here.
Just have a couple more things. Recently, I read a quote by Helen Keller that sounded something like our mother would say. Some of us, the dreamers, were born to dance upon the wind. High flight. Oh, I have slipped the surly bond of the earth and danced the skies on laughter, silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of, wheeled, soared, and swung. High in the sunlit silence, hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through the fearless halls of air. Up, up, the long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark or eagle flew, and while the silent lifting mind I've trod. A high, untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God. Our mother was a dreamer. She made her dreams come true. In her honor, we should all continue to live, love, laugh, dream, and keep flying. Thank you.
And John, would you like to come up too? is my distinct honor and pleasure to induct Carol Rymer Davis into the National Ballooning Hall of Fame. Congratulations. If anyone has any stories of Carol that you'd like to share, we have a few minutes. We'd like to come up and say something at this time. There'll be plenty of time to talk afterwards as well. Okay.